Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Friday. This is Seattle Now. This week, sea lions are toasting the summer at Shilshole and maybe overstaying their welcome just a bit. 70,000 demonstrators in Seattle earned a gold star from SPD. And would you rather live in a castle or a missile silo? Both are for sale in our region if you got at least a cool million. Author Geraldine DeRuiter and comedian Phil Burton are here to break down the week. But first, let's get you caught up. The Seattle Asian American Film Festival kicks off tonight at the Wing Luke Museum with a trio of short documentaries that honor 50 years since the end of the Vietnam War. The in-person festival runs through Saturday with screenings at Wing Luke and Broadway Performance Hall. The in-person festival will be followed by virtual screenings through June 26th. Pride Month continues with the annual Capitol Hill Pride March and Rally on Saturday. Attendees will gather at noon at Seattle Central College and march up and down Broadway beginning at 1 o'clock. Organizers say Saturday's event is not a parade, not corporate sponsored, and the goal is to remember Stonewall and the continued fight for equality, diversity, and democracy. And heads up, light rail riders, if you're heading to any of these events over the weekend, the downtown light rail stations will be closed again on Saturday and Sunday, so crews can make an urgent rail repair. Sound Transit will provide shuttle buses between Capitol Hill and Soto. They'll run every 30 to 60 minutes. The agency says service will be back to normal beginning Monday morning. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. It's Friday again. It's almost meteorological summer, which means it's going to rain this weekend. Geraldine DeRuiter's here. She's the everywhereist, an author and blogger. Geraldine, good to see you.
Hi.
Phil Burton is here. He's a comedian in Seattle and one of the Strangers 2025 undisputable champions of comedy. Phil, the bar's been set. Welcome to Casual Friday.
That's a pretty high bar. Not going to meet it. It's good to be here. So.
All right, you two, before we dive in, you see a lot of stuff down by the water in Seattle, including California sea lions. They usually pass through Seattle on their way down in the winter and into the spring. This year, they're still hanging out around Shilshole Bay Marina well into this month, which is very unusual. Seattle Times reports there are still at least 50 sea lions hanging out. They are loud. They are smelly. Does knowing this make you want to rush toward the water or away from it? I love the sea lions, personally.
I do, but I think we need to acknowledge that these are wild animals. Like, I don't know, but every year there's some video of someone either at a national park or at a beach, and they're like, oh, look, I'm sure that won't attack me because I mean well, and I have a selfie stick. Mm-hmm. And that's not how it works.
You saw that video of me?
Yeah, you know what? You looked adorable as you were bleeding. But, stay away, keep your distance. They're very cute from afar. If you get close, they will attack you. So, use common sense, people.
It's such a tourist draw, though. Phil, I would imagine if people weren't from here, they would flock to see these big, blubbery, smelly, loud things.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm not even a tourist, and I would for sure check it out. The first thing I did was, look up what these things sound like, and they sound awful. They look very cute, but they sound awful. They sound like those seagulls in Finding Nemo or something. There's no harmonizing. It's just a bunch of noise.
No harmonizing there. No harmonizing at
Get
that
it together, sea lions.
Yeah.
Maybe they sound better underwater, that Harry Potter mermaid thing. But if anything, I kind of thought about how I work downtown and people are kind of yelling there for all types of reasons, and then you go to the water and people are yelling there too. It's just people are yelling all over the city, so maybe they're playing Marco Polo or something.
Puget Sound Institute reports the Port of Seattle put sound-emitting devices on the docks to discourage the sea lions. It wasn't effective, so now they're using yellow tape to discourage humans from getting too close to the federally protected animals that might bite.
Yeah, I don't think if you really want to get bitten by a sea lion, I don't think you're going to let yellow tape stop you. I do think it's funny that they tried to kick the sea lions out of what is arguably their space. I don't know. This is just such a deeply human response to what is clearly a problem that we created. Like, we're encroaching on their habitat. And yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe let them be.
Phil, should we be more accommodating to the city's animals when they're here, even if they overstay their welcome and are technically not supposed to be here?
I think we should be accommodating, definitely. Like, no one wants to hurt a sea lion or get hurt by a sea lion, but if you listen to them for like 30 seconds, you'll probably have one or two violent thoughts. But like, they seem very cute and they are pretty funny. And the thought of them like keeping people up at night kind of makes me laugh. And, you know, they'll like jump in the water and be on their way. And I'm sure like come fall, we'll miss them. So
honestly, though, if the barking and the noise goes on and on and on, it really just becomes part of the soundtrack of the city after a certain point.
Have you been to Astoria?
No.
So Astoria, Oregon, it is, you hear it as you drive in. You just hear this deep honking. It's just like, whoa, whoa. It is this beautiful kind of throat singing. And you don't know what it is, but it strikes you as, it just unsettles you. And you're trying to figure it out. It's like someone has turned up the bass and nothing else.
Wait, what is making the sound?
It is the sea lions.
Oh.
And they are, but the thing is, there is a platform underneath the pier, and so you don't see them at first.
They're just reverberating.
Yeah, they're just, and it's
you can hear them before you can see them.
Yeah, it's haunting.
Wow.
All right, well, now that we have had two stellar sea lion impressions here on Casual Friday, we
Please
are
call
going
in
to
and
move
vote.
on to the big story of the week. Last weekend, 70,000 people showed up for No Kings protests across the city. Here in Seattle, it was so peaceful. There were no arrests. SPD even commended the citizens of the city for their peacefulness. Is this what you expected to come out of the weekend? If police commend the way you use your voice, what does that say?
Phil, you're a young person who still has cartilage in his knees. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Well, this is going to look so bad. I was out of town, so I wasn't at the protest. I was at a graduation where
So was I.
But if I was in town, I would have gone. I think it's very cool that nobody got arrested. There's something like, I don't necessarily seek the approval from the police when I'm protesting. That's definitely not why I would get out there. And I don't think, hopefully, no one's like, I hope the police think I do a good job today. Like, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. But yeah, it's good to hear that no one got arrested, no one got hurt. You know, it was safe and it was productive. And, you know, that's kind of the most you can ask for.
Yeah, no, I'm completely inclined to agree. I'm not out there looking for a gold star from Seattle PD. I will say that I think in terms of it not being violent, like that is probably inherently a good thing because it means that we're not seeing any sort of retaliatory measures by either the government or the police. And so the fact that we haven't given them a reason is something that really brings me a lot of relief. I wasn't able to go because my niece graduated college. Congratulations. I'm super proud of you, Sophie. But I really am. But when we talk about did a protest reach its purpose, we're kind of focusing on the wrong thing when we expect an outcome because we're expecting an administration that is responsive to its constituents and one that feels accountability. And that's not where we are with this right now. Like, that's not this administration. And so, you know, Trish, you shared an article with me by Marcus Harrison Green of the South Seattle Emerald, where he said, this is our, you know, these demonstrations are our secular church. And this is where we go to be reminded of why we do what we do. And I thought that was such a beautiful statement. And I realized that's why when my niece isn't graduating, that's why I go to these demonstrations. That's why I go to be reminded of what we're fighting for.
Certainly notable that 70,000 people gathered in the streets and no one was arrested. And a contrast to the protests at the Henry M. Jackson Federal Building the week before, where things got a little hairy between cops and people who were protesting. There were some clear wins over the weekend, not the least of which is that no one got arrested. Seattle's protest was peaceful. The National Guard wasn't called in. Fears of things escalating the way they did in Los Angeles, even though that was a very small area of the city. Now the conversation turns to what happens from here, right? Where does the movement that turned out in the streets go from here? A lot of people showed up. Will anything noteworthy come out of this? Do things have to escalate in order to make a point?
You know, when we look at movements, it's not one instance of anything. It's a progressive collection of actions, of protests, of demonstrations. And so even if we see one turning point, even if we look at what happened at Stonewall, I think that people need to remember that there had been a history of demonstrations in that section of New York for decades. And so I think we need to consider this is just part of ongoing work. But at some point, there might be a moment where things do change. I don't know. It sounds really depressing.
Honestly, showing up to a demonstration is your agency as a person, right? You're taking a step to do a thing that you believe in. And in that way, it's affirming, like Marcus wrote, right?
Yeah.
Like Marcus wrote. But where do you go from here? How do you, if you're protesting, take that to the next level? Because your mere presence might not be enough.
Phil, you're young and you still have collagen. Say something hopeful.
Do you feel
I'm older
hopeful?
than I look.
Do these protests make you feel hopeful?
I think so. It definitely does. And I mean, it's very cool how it's all been covered as in, like, you can be in a small town and be like, oh, we're doing the same thing as the big city, or the big city's like, we're doing the same thing as the small town. It just makes you feel a little bit more connected.
Yeah. All right. Before we move on, important note, this is the first of a few demonstrations that the organizers are planning. The White House called this weekend's demonstrations an utter failure. The next set of protests is slated for July 17th, marking 5 years since the death of Congressman John Lewis. Okay, moving on to our next topic. It's as difficult as ever to buy a home in the Seattle region, but we can still enjoy some Zillow surfing, no? We're going to talk about 2 listings today. Both of those are in the show notes, so listeners, play along at home, get a look at what we're talking about. Both were fun passion projects. One is a handmade fantasy castle on Vashon Island. I prefer to call this one bespoke. This looks more bespoke than handmade. Lee Turner, with no architectural training, built. It was inspired by a sandcastle figurine from his wife. He did nearly everything himself to make this castle complete. It has a turret, a moat, gargoyles, and a trapdoor wine cellar. If you could go all out and create your fantasy home, Phil, what would it look like?
It definitely would not look like this castle. This was like, I think Lee has, I watched a little like King 5 thing on him.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, you know, I was just like an artist and a painter, saw this sandcastle, and, you know, I talked to my father-in-law to see if he wanted to help me build it. He said no, so I just did it. And 4 years later, I'm like, what the hell were you doing like on a day-to-day? You know, he's got to have, he's
time,
for sure
money.
Got a ton of money. It's like, what are you hiding, man? It's like, is your great-grandfather like an oil baron or something? So yeah, he builds this castle, and I would just feel so silly, like waking up in the morning, going down a spiral staircase. But yeah, I guess it's a labor of love. My dream house would not look like that. It would got to be, I really love New York, so it'd probably be something in New York, like a brownstone in New York. Nice $30 million. Like, it would put that castle to shame for sure. That's cool.
All right. Geraldine, what's your fantasy home look like?
It is a castle on Vashon Island.
You're putting in a.
I'm putting in an auto. I will say one thing, which is when you told me about it, it sounded like what I had in my head was actually way worse than what the execution is.
It's quite lovely.
The execution is not...
How did he do that?
It's not that bad, especially because when you hear the phrase self-trained architect...
And it's still standing.
Yeah.
And it's increased in value.
It's based on a sandcastle. And we live in the Northwest. So I also have to say, I love a good turret. I love, like, you give me a cylindrical room. Oh,
You're psyched.
man. I am super psyched. Like, I don't know. I love it's like there's no corners. This is great.
See, I had a friend who lived in a dome, like a geodesic dome.
Oh, those were so big in the 90s.
In the woods? Yeah, man. It's funny because she said to me, yeah, I'll give you the address to my dome. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. She's domicile. That's really funny. Yeah, it's an actual freaking dome. But anyway, the problem, like the turret, is the room is round.
Yeah.
Which is a very...
It's disorienting.
It's a little disorienting.
How do you hang up a painting? You know?
Well, and I noticed in the turret kitchen that's a really strange design. Like that counter had to be a trapezoid.
Yeah, it's not.
Know?
So I actually have to say the kitchen was the part that kind
no
of
wonder those kings fell, because it's like they're like spending all their time.
They couldn't figure out where to go.
Yeah, they're trying to redecorate their places, and meanwhile someone's outside with a Trojan horse. So
you could be the proud owner of this castle for a mere $1.25 million. Probably took a lot more than that to build it, though. There's a lot of love in that castle.
It's honestly, there's something. It's weird because when I see it, and then when I see there's footage of him with his wife, it is such a it's kind of deeply romantic, but it's also so.
Dude's got to build castles now.
Get on it, Phil.
Well, man, the other fun risk. Speaking of castles, man, forget about castles. What about silos? The other fun real estate listing is a former Cold War missile silo in Lincoln County, Washington. The place is massive. It's on 24.5 acres. Also windowless. The living space is only 2,000 square feet, though. So since 12,000 square feet goes to the missile silo.
What does that mean?
It means you could have a giant missile on your property if you wanted to.
Okay. Oh, boy.
Its former occupant was not a doomsday prepper. He was just really into living underground. No, really into living underground.
He was a prairie dog.
He loved the show Silo. I don't know if you guys watched that, but like, that's the weirdest thing. I guess I did looked at the layout, and the living room just looks like a single dude's living room.
I noticed the cords creeping across the wall.
White walls, the TV's not mounted like a Target lamp. It's yeah.
The bedroom had those little slidey mirrored doors that you get in your rental apartment when you're in college. Yeah.
So I encourage everyone to go look at the Zillow listing.
It is quite the thing.
It is so deeply dystopian to me, I have to say. Looking at this, I don't know, because I'm like, there's no windows to the outside. I don't know. This just feels like the start of a zombie novel. And this is a great place to be. Like, the bunker is a good place if you want to survive the apocalypse.
Well, and think about the design problem you have in this place, though, with no windows. Like we were saying, it's all white and it looks like a single dude's living room. But if you were to paint color on those walls, you would need so much lighting in that place. I think a white is the only option.
Well, and I also don't understand. So I have a friend who has a basement unit, and he wanted to put a bedroom in there. And they were basically like, all right, so for fire codes, you need an escape route.
Yes.
So I don't know how one would feel safe sleeping in an environment if there is no exit. And I actually don't know how this meets code.
Well, it will withstand like some level of environmental emergency outside because of the way it's built. But you're right. If it starts inside the house, you feel like you might be hosed.
What a way to go. You're
know
ready for the end of the world, and there's just like a leak or something. Like,
oh, my God. All right. If money was no object, castle or bunker?
Oh, castle, 100%. Like,
I already know your answer, Geraldine.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the bunker. And the reason I'm going to take the bunker is because it's really far away from everyone. And I feel like Vashon is beautiful and that castle is beautiful. But if I'm moving out of the city, I'm moving away. Way.
But, Trish, what do you think the resale value of it is?
Well, at the end of the world, I'll be the only one left. So
yeah, that is it.
All right. Well, 2025 has been a lot so far. I wonder, in theory, personal preference aside, which one makes the most sense? The prepper house or the fantasy escape?
So here's the thing. Here's the thing, friends. I'm going to tell you right now. Listen up. Listen to Auntie Geraldine. The end is near.
You heard it here first.
You did. And you don't want to survive it. Look, you do not You want to be...
You are not Pedro Pascal.
Nope. You want to be... You are... Look, respectfully, you're not as hot as him. You don't have his scrappy survival instinct. You want to be out in the first wave when there is still cheese and booze and refrigeration. So you don't want that bunker, friends. No. You want zombies to eat you in that turret because you got dizzy going down those stairs.
If you're a farmer's market person, you are not a bunker person.
Exactly. And let's be fair, if you're listening to KUOW, guess what?
You are cooked.
You are a farmer's market person. So you choose that castle, all right? And you go out in the first wave.
All right. We are going to leave it there. Geraldine DeRuiter, ladies and gentlemen, is an author and blogger and real estate agent. Phil Burton is a local comedian. Thanks so much, Phil.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thanks, Geraldine.
I'm never getting invited back.
Appreciate you listening to Seattle Now. Today's episode was produced by Vaughn Jones and Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.